Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy.
So today, our case is in Tennessee in 1995. So 4 teenage students took a walk on the campus of the University of Tennessee. 3 of them are said to belong to a satanic cult. And the 4th, Colleen Slimmer, she was a teen from Florida who only tagged along for free weed. Now, Colleen will never return to her dorm or be seen from or heard from again alive. Obviously, because she's not going to be heard from afterwards. But anywho, instead, she'll be found the next day mutilated with a pentagram carved into her torso and a piece of her smashed skull missing.
Oh, God.
So that is going to be what we're discussing today. The murderer is Christa Gail Pike. Now, she was born March 10th, 1976 in West Virginia, where she was raised by her devout Christian grandmother. I will point out that I had different resources that said one had her as a devout Christian grandmother. That's specifically how she was described. And then another, an abusive alcoholic. So I suppose it just depended on day to day whether she was more of the Christian or more of the abusive alcoholic. Nonetheless, that's who raised Christa.
Where was her mom? Do you know?
We're going there.
Or her dad?
So this whole family seems like they have an alcohol problem. So it's like she's bounced around. But growing up, her playground was the slaughterhouse where her grandfather worked. And that was her as a child, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Christa will allege that her grandfather's friend, Ernest, abused her. And sadly, it's speculated that this abuse occurred she was still in diapers up until 12.
Holy shit.
So, now, mind you, there's no, nothing to go on with that one. Now, later on, there will be family members that will corroborate some of the stories that Christa later tells, but we'll get there. So it's just, mind you, she's not the most honest individual, and whether she exaggerates things for attention, I don't know. But it's still, even if it happened once, it's still just something to know.
Well, not to get distracted off of it, but if she was in diapers, don't you feel like somebody would have known? Because I feel like there's an awful lot of...
Yeah. I don't know where it came that it's speculated that it started when she was in diapers. I don't know if it's a case of that guy babysat or watched her or had been known to be alone with her, or maybe there was something going on. I don't know. I have no idea. But when I read it, still disgusting.
Oh, absolutely. And we all know how I feel about pedophiles, so
but
go ahead and jump on that island.
I feel like the island should be where the pedophiles are.
That's what I'm saying. He can go ahead and join the island of pedophiles.
I thought you were suggesting your opinion on pedophiles. People could go ahead and jump on that island is where I thought.
Nope.
It was an invitation.
Definitely not. Only to the pedophiles. They can all go live on an island and be tortured. Anyway, okay, well, carry on.
Back on track. So at the age of 12, her grandmother dies. I don't know what she died of, but I would just assume it was natural, which causes Christa to attempt suicide in her grief. So still trying to cope with her death.
Wait, how old is she? 12?
She's 12 when she attempts suicide. Because I guess she's not dealing with her grief in the most constructive ways. Yeah. So then this is where she starts going down the route of self-mutilation and externalizing her pain. But this forces her to move in with her mother, which she doesn't have a good relationship with. She doesn't have a good relationship with either one of her parents. So this is beginning of, obviously prior to 12, if there was some sexual abuse going on, not the best place anyhow, but it was at least a stable environment. this is kind of going to start where she shuffles between her parents who are not married to each other. Now, Krista's mom's not married. Her dad remarried and does have another child with someone else. But this shuffle starts the shuffle between her parents. And basically, I guess it turns into one of those, so she's not the best child. And when people get irritated with her, and by people, I mean her parents, it's like she gets kicked out from one, goes to the other, and that's the ping pong action between mom and dad.
Healthy way to deal with a troubled child.
Yeah. So Krista's mother at this time is a full blown alcoholic, and she also happens to be a registered nurse.
Sorry.
Now, she does later testify that as a desperate way to bond with her 12-year-old daughter, they would smoke pot together. But they
What?
started. Yeah. Now, she'll also claim that Krista was growing pot in her room at the age of 9, which everybody called bullshit on because it's like 9. She doesn't even know what weed is at that point, and she's just harvesting it herself.
Yeah, that sounds like a load of crap.
So I feel like Krista's mom is doing the whole, she might have gotten caught growing pot herself. And like, no, that was Krista's. So that just tell, and mind you, at 9, she wasn't even living with her mother. She was living with her grandmother. So I'm just like, okay, lady. But she would try to smoke, or well, she wouldn't try to smoke pot with her. They would smoke pot together as a way to bond, but they still didn't have a good relationship because she's an abusive alcoholic too.
So I
So
feel like your foundation for a mother-daughter relationship or any child relationship the foundation should not be drug induced. Just my opinion.
I agree. So with that not so great relationship, the pot would help Krista manage her physical pain from the beatings she would get from not only her mother, but when her mother would have whatever boyfriend in the house, they would also smack her.
What?
So Krista's mother ended up taking her troubled young daughter to see a shrink. However, most of the shrinks that Krista would visit didn't really help her when it came to her mental health. So
I
it's just
mean,
like,
I don't feel like there's anything that a therapist could do for
yeah,
my
yeah,
mental health if I'm going home and my mom and her whatever penis that she's boinking at the time are beating on me. Like there's no amount of venting about that is going to make the situation better.
agreed. But so naturally, life at home was not great since, again, every with that revolving door of men coming in her mother's life would take to beating her. So I feel like, in a way to make up for that, her mother allows Krista to have a live in boyfriend at the age of 14.
Okay, so
I don't know how old that boyfriend was, but I was like,
no.
no. Now, in an interview with Krista later on, she recalls one of her mom's boyfriends saying, quote, that he made this leather strap with a wooden handle on it specifically to beat the hell out of me with. And he made this thing and hung it up on my bedroom wall like it was a decoration. Now, she would be struck with that by that said boyfriend and then pull a knife on her mother's boyfriend before calling the police. I don't know
Good
how
for
that
her.
I don't know how that fared because she was a juvenile.
Well, but good for her because at least she stood up for herself.
Yeah. But I also feel like this is about the time where she probably went and moved with dad or was kicked out to go live with her dad.
Okay.
Because now by the time she's 18 years old, she's dropped out of high school and enrolls in a Job Corps program at the Knoxville campus of the University of Tennessee in the 90s. Now, by this time, this is when she's kicked out of her father's home. Now, by this time, it's twice she's kicked out. But Krista's dad would later testify that she was always disobedient, dishonest, and a manipulative person. And the final straw was when he suspected her of sexually abusing his 2-year-old daughter from his second marriage.
Wait, what?
Exactly. So that's where part of me believes she was molested in the early years prior to 12, prior to her grandmother and all that. But it's just like a 2-year-old, her half sister. I mean, I give credit to Dad for being able to kick his daughter out, although I feel like it was too easy since she was a problem child to begin with.
Yeah.
But mind you, that's at 18. She's basically kicked out from everywhere. So she enrolls in the Job Corps program. Now, I didn't know what Job Corps was prior to this case. So just so you know, it was described as providing vocational training for disadvantaged youths, giving them a chance for a promising career. Now, students lived on campus in dormitories. However, it was a hotbed of criminal activity and would later be closed down in April 1995. Now, ironically, when that school, whatever you want to call it, training center is closed down, that area of Tennessee sees a drastic drop in crime.
Interesting. Good call on closing it, I guess.
Now, the death of Colleen is kind of the catalyst for closing the shit down for the mismanagement that transpired there. Now, when Christa is there, she enrolls to study nursing to follow in her mother's footsteps, which, again, kind of eye rolled on that one because I wouldn't follow in any of that family's footsteps.
Yeah, no.
But it's at Job Corps that Christa would meet Colleen Slimmer, who again is our victim in this, who was enrolled in the same program. Now, they were not friends. Christa suspected Colleen of attempting to seduce her 17-year-old boyfriend named Taddaryl.
Okay.
So, mind you, Christa is 18, her boyfriend's 17. At one point, Christa travels back home to, I assume, West Virginia for a holiday break. Taddaryl stays behind in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was only because of her absence that Taddaryl decides to turn his attention to Colleen. Now, he does later admit that he and Colleen did hook up during that break. However, he claims he never confirmed that with Christa. He always denied that he ever did anything with her. So Christa was only going off of her suspicions.
Good on suspicions, though.
Yeah, she was spot on. Trust your instincts, people. Not to the point of murder, but go with your gut.
Yeah.
But in an interview, Taddaryl would say, quote, "I didn't even know she existed. She approached me." Which, yeah, whatever. I feel like that's always a guy's excuse. It wasn't me. She came on to me. My penis just fell into her. I'm just saying. That's the way I took that one naturally. She did it. It was all her fault. I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, now friends of Colleen denied that she was attempting to steal Taddaryl away from Christa. But nevertheless, there was obvious tension between these two young ladies. Now, Christa attempts to extend an olive branch to Colleen by offering her some of the pot she had stashed away in the woods. To which I'm just going to say, I would call immediate bullshit, or red flags would be going off here, that somebody who's not my friend wants to share pot with me in the woods that they have stashed. Who stashes their weed in the woods?
I don't know.
I didn't know that was a thing. It doesn't seem like the best strategy.
No, it doesn't.
But surprise, surprise, that was not her true intention. Now, the bag of weed she claimed was hidden was only the hook to reel Colleen in to her grim fate.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah. So the night before, Christa admits to her friend Kim that she was planning on killing Colleen because she just felt mean that day.
What?
Mm-hmm. Now, Christa and Taddaryl were both into the occult. A few days prior to Colleen's death, Taddaryl would tell another student that he had to make a human sacrifice soon because the celestial bodies were in alignment. Which, how do you say that to anyone and it just sounds like part of a normal conversation?
Yeah, that's weird.
Like, what do you got on your to-do list? Oh, grocery shopping. What do you got? Oh, I've got to make a human sacrifice shortly because the celestial bodies are in alignment.
Seems
I feel like that would be
sane and normal. Yeah.
I feel like that would be the last conversation I had with that individual. I'd be like,
100%.
Going this way at a fast rate of speed. But at roughly 8 p.m. on Thursday, January 12th, Christa, Tadero, Shadola, and Colleen signed out of their dorms with the intention of getting high.
Hey, total ADD moment.
Who's Shadola?
Your murder takes place at the exact same timing as my Shanda Share. You said January 12th?
Oh yeah, January. I guess we're
so that's the same day that Shanda Scherer was murdered. It was January 12th, 1991, I think.
1991?
I think it was 1991. But just interesting, it's the same.
Yeah.
Murder date. Anyway.
Was it Indiana?
Yeah.
At least it was Indiana. It'd be weird if it was Tennessee again. Maybe it's because it's the 13th, the Friday the 13th things.
My Shanda Scherer, they started killing her on the 11th, but it crossed into midnight when she was actually killed onto the 12th. But it's all in the details. Anyway, can you carry on?
I'm going to restart that one just so you know.
Okay.
At roughly 8 p.m. on Thursday, January 12th, Christa, Tadero, their friend Shadola, and Colleen signed out of their dorms with the intention of going to get high. The group didn't appear to have a problem walking into the woods together on campus along the jogging trail as they led Colleen to an isolated area in Tyson Park near the University of Tennessee campus. Now, once they disappeared into the dark forest, it was here where the grisly acts unfolded. Now, Christa confronts Colleen, accusing her of wanting to steal her boyfriend almost immediately. As Colleen begins denying the accusation, she quickly realized they weren't in the woods to smoke pot. Christa and Tadero were armed with a miniature cleaver and a box cutter.
Oh, gosh.
Now,
wait, a miniature cleaver?
That's what I was going to point out. I was like, I pictured one of the ones that you can get like from the dollar store.
Like for like little... cheese?
Yes. Because I was like, okay, so who goes to kill somebody and gets the smallest weapons they can find? Why don't you get toothpicks and a toenail clipper while you're at it?
But I was more thinking an X-Acto knife, but like, yeah, these are some pretty tiny tools.
Which leads to why this is as brutal as it is, because it's not really an effective weapon for slicing anything.
It seems like it'd be superficial wounds.
Yeah. So Shadola is assigned as the lookout. So that's what she does. She's not armed at all. She's just standing watch at the wood line. Christa grabs Colleen's head and slams her face into her knee and then throws Colleen into the ground.
So this is so much like the Shanda Scherer case. Because that's how it started off. Melissa Lovelace slammed Shanda's face
into her knee.
Like, okay, carry on. Sorry.
Way to make it about you.
It's not about me. It was about Shanda. And they have the same murder date. But anyway.
So while Colleen is on the ground, Christa begins unrelentingly kicking and punching her. Now, during all this, Colleen cries out, "Why are you doing this to me?" As the forceful blows continued, as she's just laying in the mud sobbing. Now, Colleen finds the strength to stand up and tries to escape, which only results in Christa slicing a long cut across her back with the meat cleaver. Now, mind you, it's still the miniature meat cleaver, but it is a pretty long gash, almost from shoulder to the end of her rib cage. So the amount of anger and rage and fury that Christa has behind her to use with, let's face it, those things aren't even particularly sharp anyway.
Yeah.
But the force behind it had to have been substantial.
What was Tadero doing this whole time? Just watching?
I guess. I would imagine it's one of those everything's happening faster than it feels like moments. But I feel like he was probably watching and taunting and doing whatever. When she tries to escape a second time, her attempts were thwarted by Tadero, who caught Colleen and held her to the ground. Christa comes over and starts slicing Colleen again. this time across her stomach with the meat cleaver. Colleen begged Christa for her life, telling her that if Christa lets her go, that she would, quote, walk back to Florida without stopping at Job Corps to pick up her stuff. But her pleas will fall on deaf ears.
Wait, she's in Tennessee?
Yeah.
And she's offering to walk to Florida?
I imagine at this point she's been kicked, smacked, and now she's being sliced with the little miniature cleaver. Now, Christa tells Colleen to shut up, saying it's harder to hurt someone when they're talking to you. She later on admits that the more Colleen tried to talk to her, the more she kicked her in the face. The unrelenting...
Well, I was about to say I would definitely keep talking if it's making this more difficult for you, but if that results in me getting kicked in the face, then
you might stop talking.
Yeah, probably.
The unrelenting and brutal torture paused momentarily when Christa thought she heard a noise in the nearby woods, which to me was like, I thought you had a lookout anyway. But nonetheless, she goes to investigate, which leaves Colleen lying on the campground, or the cold ground, while Tadeo watches her. Now, when Christa returns, she unsheaths the box cutter blade and proceeds to cut the helpless girl's throat, which takes several passes. Incredibly, Colleen once again has the strength to sit up and plead for her life, and even attempts yet another escape. As soon as she starts to run, Christa grabs of asphalt and chunks it at her and hits her square in the back of the head and knocks her down. Now, Tadeo joins in with the rock throwing and just a little piece of shit. Now, Christa explained how after regaining control, she remembers the specific sound of Colleen's labored breathing. And a medical examiner will later describe how Colleen was drowning in her own blood. Now, it's roughly 30 minutes of Colleen begging for her life as she's taunted, beaten, stabbed, and sliced. During this time, Tadeo takes the box cutter and carves a pentagram into Colleen's chest. Christa would later comment how she was enjoying watching her bleed, which is why she was able to escape so many times, because I guess she was just mesmerized in watching Colleen bleed.
Okay.
And the medical examiner would later testify, saying the area around each wound was red in appearance, which indicates the heart had still been beating when the wound was inflicted. He also added, none of the previously sustained wounds that she's had thus far would render her unconscious. So every single slash across her skin Colleen felt. She suffered through agony for nearly an hour before Christa picked up a large chunk of broken asphalt and repeatedly struck Colleen in the head, which leads Colleen's pain finally coming to an end on the cold forest floor.
That's horrible.
Now, mind you, Shadola kept watch. Tadeo and Christa dragged Colleen's body to a nearby patch where there was a cluster of trees and debris and a pile of just junk. And that's where they left her body. But before leaving the site, Christa took a piece of Colleen's fragmented skull and placed it in the pocket of her jeans as a trophy.
What?
Yes. Now, Satanists believe that the body must be whole for the soul to be released, and by taking part of Colleen, her soul would be captive, which to me really adds to... Yeah, this whole thing has been disgusting, but even in death, she's fucking with her.
Yeah, that's not okay. I mean, none of it's okay, but at this point, she still doesn't know that her boyfriend actually diddled her.
No, so she says. You would think they would have said she knew, and that's why it was like a fit of rage. She probably would have had more of a defense strategy with that. But it wasn't. It was thought out. They brought a lookout. They came they came armed, which I would say loosely, because a miniature cleaver.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. But could you imagine being her boyfriend, and at this point, your girlfriend doesn't know that you actually cheated on her with this girl? Just thinks that this girl wanted you, and it resulted in her being brutalized and murdered.
I think it
Like,
would have been grounds for him to get the brutalizing thing. What I don't get
yeah,
when
exactly.
the guy's doing the tittling too. That like I don't know why females tend to do that. They get mad at the other female. They're two in that situation. Both
Yeah.
both were wrong. Why does only one? Not to encourage people to do a double murder,
No,
but
yeah, no,
that's
I'm not. I'm just saying to Daryl, could you imagine being in his shoes though? Like
I think
your
he's doing that
girlfriend,
deer and headlights blank stare thing of just
for
like,
sure, because his girlfriend doesn't even know he actually cheated with this chick. She's getting tortured and murdered for just the suspicion that she likes him,
yeah.
let alone, yeah, okay.
So after they dragged her body over to where they're leaving it, they removed 2 of her ID cards and a pair of black gloves that Colleen had been wearing. I'm not 100% sure why the gloves, um, but they take those anyhow. Now, Tadero and Krista rubbed the mud from the bottom of their shoes over the blood stains on their pants in an attempt to cover up the evidence. Now, they leave that isolated part of campus and walk to a nearby gas station to dispose of the ID cards and gloves. Now, before they do that, before they return to their dorms around 8 o'clock. So, all of this transpired in a 2-hour chunk, which is really kind of brief.
Yeah.
But they return as if nothing happened. Now, keep in mind, 4 people signed out that night, but only 3 signed back in. Which I don't understand the point of the sign in and out log. If people are signed out and not back in, shouldn't it have raised alarms that night that she didn't sign back in?
Did they have to sign, like,
I
I
don't
don't
I don't know.
understand the rules. Where they did they have to be back by then? Or was it
I
okay if they decided to stay out?
I have no idea, but the sign in and out log makes me think that there was a purpose to it. Like a I'm gonna brain fart here, Andrea. It's not parole. The time you have to be back by.
Curfew?
Yeah. If they've got a curfew to be back by, which is what the purpose of signing in and out is, I would think because if it's meant to help at risk youths, there's a reason they've got to sign in and out. There's, I don't know.
Yeah. Or unless it's just to track their going ons.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So once they
Because
get
they
back,
are adults
true. Well,
ish.
yeah. I was gonna say we got
Because to
17
Daryl's
year old.
17, yeah.
Now, once back in the dorms, Krista revisits her friend Kim, who she had told she wanted to kill Colleen to. But this time, Krista wasn't feeling mean. Now, as Kim describes, she starts dancing around in circles, smiling and singing like a child who wanted to show off, while bragging to Kim that she had cut Colleen's throat 6 beat her and thrown asphalt at her head. She then whipped out the piece of Colleen's skull and that she had taken. Now, although Kim does not immediately go to the police, Colleen's butchered remains were discovered the next morning by a university employee who initially thought he stumbled upon an animal carcass. The man went to look closer and, to his horror, realized he was looking at a human body. Now, when he notices Colleen's naked torso at 8 a.m. on Friday.
Wait, how'd she get naked?
So I didn't understand that either. The only thing I could figure is maybe she was wearing like a button-up like shirt, and when she was trying to run, like grab an arm sleeve kind of thing. But I don't know where her top went.
Or her bra?
Maybe she didn't wear one. But
It hurts my upper back just thinking about it.
I don't know, but I feel like that was when she was trying to get away, and that's what they grabbed at, and it ripped off.
Can I just say that in January, in the evening,
yeah, it's cold.
I feel like it would be cold. She didn't have a jacket either. It was just.
I'm just telling you how she was found, Andrea.
All right. Just
but the Knoxville police arrive along with university police the campus police. One of the first responding officers described Colleen's head, saying, "I thought I was looking into her face, but everything was so badly mangled, I couldn't be sure."
Oh, God.
Christa was careless following the murder. She went to class the next morning and made a similar statement to Stephanie Wilson that she had made to her friend Kim. Christa then pointed to her shoes and said, "That ain't mud on my shoes. That's blood."
Sorry.
She
The
pulled the
accent's what made me laugh. Okay. I'm not laughing. It's just freaking accent, Claire.
She pulled the napkin from her pocket and showed her the piece of Colleen's skull. Stephanie, too, does not immediately go to the police.
What is with people and not going to the police?
I don't know. So in this case, I kind of felt like since the Job Corps place has it seems like a hotbed of criminal activity, I feel like it was one of those you go to the cops, you're a snitch, and then you're going to end up the same
Snitches
situation.
get stitches. Yeah.
So where neither one of these girls immediately go to the police, they do eventually come forward and make a statement. But they weren't forthcoming with information before officers went to them, kind of scenario. But Christa also returns to the crime scene, only to be denied entry to the part of the woods she wanted to go. She also leaves behind her jacket, the same one with the piece of Colleen's skull in it, in an administrator's office on campus. Now, when that administrator finds out that they are looking towards Colleen's direction, they do turn over the jacket to police, where they discover the piece of skull. Now, all three...
No, I feel like they probably searched the pockets to find out whose jacket it was and found that chunk of skull and was like, okay.
Well, I don't think so.
It seems like a far leap to just turn the jacket into police and then the police find a skull piece.
So
that doesn't make sense.
I don't feel like if you happened upon a piece of skull, you'd know what it was. Like, it could have been an animal piece. I don't feel like they would have immediately... And at this point in an investigation, nobody knew a part of her skull was missing anyway.
Why would they... Okay, so if she left her jacket, why would they turn it into police?
Find out whose it is.
So you turn it into the cops for a jacket?
Andrew, I'm just telling you the story.
I don't get it.
So she's arrested.
That's a serious lost and found right there.
Christa Pike, Tadaryl Shipp, and Shadola Peterson were promptly arrested within 36 hours of the discovery of her body. Christa and Tadaryl were wearing their pentagram necklaces when they were arrested and photographed. Now, Christa was the first to be questioned. She waived her rights to remain silent and admitted she was at fault for Colleen's death. Now, this girl can't shut up. I don't know if she was latte or whatever, but her entire confession, once typed, was over 40 pages in length.
How long is a normal confession?
God damn it, Andrea.
Okay. I was just curious.
I don't know. I didn't research the average confession. I imagine it would depend on what you did, but as if that wasn't enough for police, they also found Colleen's blood-soaked jeans that Christa had worn that night. Christa also volunteers to take the police back to the gas station where they found Colleen's IDs and also accompanied them back to the woods to describe the events in further detail.
So I don't understand, what's the point in going out of your way to take them and throw them out if you're just going to take police to go get them?
So I almost feel like Tadaryl was the one trying to cover it up because she was talking to everybody. She had to know she was going to get caught. And I almost feel like she wanted to be caught so that she could regale everybody with how amazing she is.
Mm.
But now when they search Tadaryl's dorm room, they find a satanic Bible and obviously his bloody clothes. So they go to jail. The trial takes place March 22nd, 1996. Christa was prosecuted by Bill Crabtree and Assistant Knoxville County District Attorney. In his opening statement to jurors, he began explaining that the evidence within the case is an act so vile, so heinous, so atrocious, so despicable, as bad or worse than anything you've ever seen in a movie, read in a novel, or dreamed in your worst nightmare. Now, prosecutors' strategies were to paint Christa as a cold-blooded killer who plotted Colleen's death and cruelty was prolonged for sport.
Which is 100% accurate.
That's the way I read it. It was like, so they didn't have to paint it. That's the picture. Like,
Yeah.
there's what other way do you look at it? To which the defense would say, Christa was a victim of Tadero, who was the manipulative mastermind behind this whole plot. She was a victim of that, her own mental illness, and of mob violence. To which I said, I'd like to see the definition of a mob because I don't believe two people make a mob. Two people in a lookout? Mob violence? No, sir.
No.
Now, during the
I feel
trial.
Wait. I feel like that attorney was really just reaching for like any type of defense. Like, I have to defend this chick, which, let's just face it, is probably a court appointed attorney because she probably couldn't afford one. And he's like, I got to put some kind of spin on this shit. This chick's crazy.
Yeah, she was arrested and wouldn't shut up. Now, during the trial, Christa cried almost continuously during the whole thing, which I feel like plucked the nerves of the jurors because it didn't seem to faze them or influence them in any way.
Good on the jury.
Now, Christa would say she lured Colleen to the woods to scare her, but that it had all gone horribly wrong. She claims that one time Colleen had come up to her and threatened her with a box cutter. And when they brought her to the woods, that's why Christa had the box cutter as like a haha, I've got one too, and had intended to fight her because she'd been running her mouth and Christa wanted to get her alone. Now,
solid plan.
Yeah, okay. Now, the medical examiner testified that it was the office technique to document major sharp force or slash and stab wounds by assigning them a letter. Now, during the autopsy, they realized that if she were to label each wound according to policy, she would run out of letters and have to resort to labeling them as AA, BB, CC, etc. Eventually, she had to resort to labeling all of Colleen's wounds as innumerable and excessive based on like the backs of her arms, her back, her chest, her face, like innumerable, with a box cutter and a miniature cleaver. And I think if they would have had any real weapons, it would have been way quicker, but because they weren't sharp, they weren't long, they really couldn't inflict a deadly blow, which is why she had to smash her brains in.
That's disgusting and absolutely horrific.
Now, family would testify on Christa's behalf of the twisted images on her TV growing up, where pornography or horror movies played continuously. Her aunt would
That's their fault. You don't get a free pass to try to justify. And they kicked her ass out.
Well, this is like her aunts and her uncles and stuff, not her mom and dad.
Whatever. Nobody wanted this girl.
Well, exactly. So her aunt would take the stand and say she refused to allow her own children to associate with their niece or with her niece because they lived in a filthy home that had absolutely no ground rules. So I assume this was when she was with her mother. Christa also claims she was a victim of a variety of physical and sexual abuse, some of which was backed up by relatives, some not. There was plenty of public indications that Christa had serious problems before she became a murderer, but there's absolutely zero indication that family tried to get her legitimate help. So it's either they were passing her off onto another relative or turning their back entirely. Not to say that they're solely at fault, but they helped create this monster.
Yeah. And they did nothing to try to help her. They sloughed it off like it's somebody else's problem. It's not okay.
No. Now, the prosecution had mountains of evidence against her. I mean, paired with the physical evidence, her confession, both written and recorded. So the jury was able to listen to her interview. It only took the jury 2.5 hours to deliberate and find her guilty.
Well, it also probably helped see through the fake tears.
Yeah.
Because since she appeared to be proud of her.
Yeah. Her little.
Yeah.
So the jurors described Christa as having an angel's face, but the devil's heart. Now, Christa Gail Pike was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to death by electrocution on March 22nd, 1996. Tadero was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole. And Shadola received probation since she agreed to be an informant against the other two. She pled guilty to being an accessory after the fact.
Hold up. Is Tadero out?
So he had to serve 25 years of his sentence before being up for parole, which means he's up for parole in 2031.
So being given a life sentence is 25 years, and then being given the additional 25 years, they only have to serve like half of that, and then they're up for parole.
I have no idea. I just know he's up for parole 2031.
Stupid.
I don't understand, by the way, the point of life in prison with parole. That doesn't make any sense to me. Which is
no. I don't think it does either. Because if you're going to have a bunch of idiots that are going to be on their best behavior for a brief period of time, because let's face it, 25 years is a short period of time when you're going to get out and go kill more people.
Which, speaking of which, I also think, now mind you, he's 17 during all of this, right? I am surprised that they even sentenced him as serious as they did. Maybe that's a part of the factor in for why his sentence is the way as it is. And with parole, because where he's not innocent by any means, that's 17.
Yeah, it's young.
Really? I don't want to say I feel bad for him because I really don't. But if he does get out in 2031, what is he really supposed to do?
I have no idea. Good luck to him. Hopefully he's on the straight and narrow at that point, because I honestly, like, for me, my mindset goes to 17, and he's basically still growing up. And obviously if he's already considered a troubled youth at that age, then it's not like he was taught a better way of life while in prison. Let's be realistic. So either A, it's made him a hardened criminal and he's going to be worse, or B, I don't know what B would be, but my concern would mainly be A.
I was really curious, actually. So I like that there's not a B.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying rehabilitation can't happen, but realistically, if you have a child that's still impressionable and they were already on a negative path, what is the honest likelihood that after spending
the majority of their life with other career criminals, that like and he's going to pick up some shit and thus be institutionalized view of everything.
Right. Very. I'll be interested to see how that works out in the future for him.
You got 8 years. 9. I ain't so good at math. Now, at only 20 years old, Christa becomes the youngest woman to be sentenced to death in the United States. Only a few days after finding out that she would be executed, she sent a note to Tadero, writing, "Please write me. I miss you so much. You see what I get for trying to be nice to that hoe? I went ahead and bashed her brains out so she'd die quickly instead of letting her bleed to death and suffer more, and they fucking fry me? Ain't that something? Please write me and tell me what you're feeling. Also, tell your lawyer if he wants me to testify for you, I will. Love you for the rest of my life. Signed, the little devil."
This girl has issues.
Yes, I agree. Now, her defense team extended an appeal to the federal court system, saying that her fate, or they've requested her fate be changed to life in prison and for her not to be executed. They argued that she had mental illness and that capital punishment in Tennessee is unconstitutional for those with mental illness. It was a last-ditch effort for Christa's life to be spared. Now,
did they spare her?
The legal team representing Christa centered their defense on testimony attesting to the trauma she suffered at an early age. Now, Dr. Jonathan Henry Pincus was an expert in neurology and testified to the appeals court that Christa's brain had underdeveloped frontal lobes. Now, this is the part of the brain where a person's sense of right and wrong is managed. And Dr. Pincus would say that this was a result of Christa's mother abusing alcohol while she was pregnant.
Okay, so 2 things. 1, don't drink while you're pregnant, people. It drives me nuts when people drink or smoke while they're pregnant because
It's not good.
things that you already know it can do to a fetus. Not okay. And his name, Pincus, it sounds like you're going to catch something from him. He just sounds contagious.
What do you got? Oh, just got a bout with some Pincus.
Oh, sorry. I know that's total ADD moment, but
Hey, maybe he's got something named after him. I don't know. I wouldn't want anything named after me.
What do you got? I got about a Claire.
Even if I discovered it, no. Do not name that after me. No. I think I could come up with a couple people's names I'd name it after. But anywho, so he'd also argue that this combined with a turbulent adolescence is what's to blame for Christa's issues. And that she basically, without a moral compass and subject to her mind-bending childhood experiences, is what's to blame. Now, psychiatrists also examine Christa and find her to be extremely bright. They even tested her IQ, which came in at 111, which is definitely brighter than most. They found that remarkable considering she's a high school dropout. Now, she was diagnosed with having a borderline personality disorder, which is a condition that describes a person bordering on neurosis and psychosis. Now, people with borderline personality disorder are similar to psychopaths and just as dangerous. They have poor impulse control, volatile effects, a fluctuating self-image that bounces between being in despair and self-aggrandizement. And they often have relationship-related issues. Now, the appeals court doesn't buy any of this shit and upholds the previous ruling and sends Christa right back to death row. Now, on August 24th, 2001, after 5 years into her sentence, Christa attempts to kill again. She was nearly successful in strangling Patricia Jones, a fellow inmate, to death in a battle for the affections of a Greenville killer.
Wait. My mind is spinning. So she tried to kill an inmate over
another inmate. It was another love triangle she found herself in.
So she switched from liking men to women?
She went with what she had available, Andrea.
I was just curious. Clarifying, that's all.
She claimed she didn't intend to kill Patricia, but in a phone call that she made to her mother, she could be heard saying, now mind you, when I go to tell you what she said, it's just, I feel like everybody knows they record your calls, they record the visits. Why would you open your mouth and say anything? But mind you, she's heard saying, I bet you if she gets near me, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to succeed this damn time. See, now I know the difference between premeditated murder and what happened with Colleen, because I premeditated the hell out of this one. Sure did. If I'd had 30 more seconds, we'd have had a little chalk outline there in our rec pen.
I really like the accent, by the way.
Well, I can't, if I told you each one of these was a quote, it's not as cool. Now, Christa received yet another guilty conviction, this time for attempted first-degree murder, and gets 25 years added to her sentence of death, which I was like, okay, so...
she's getting the death penalty. What is 25?
You could make it 2,000 years at this point. It does not change anything.
Does that, extend how long until they execute her?
I don't know. Is
it like a punishment where she's like, okay, now you get to sit in timeout even longer before we kill you? Because I feel like that would just prolong people
tax dollars.
So if I keep trying to kill people, they won't actually kill me.
Pretty much. I mean? Yeah. Now, in March 2012, Christa tries to escape prison. Now, she involves a correction officer by the name of Justin Heflin and a New Jersey man named Donald Kohut. Now, Donald visited Christa several times in prison, but it's unclear what the details of their relationship were. But they were caught in the throes of their plan during a joint investigation between the Tennessee Department of Corrections, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, and the New Jersey State Police. So my guess would be they were probably planning this over the phone and during the visits, and they were being recorded because what the fuck?
The correction officer didn't,
He's an idiot. Flat moron is all I can say, that he was doing a lot of thinking, not with his upstairs head. But
yeah.
Now, it's of some people's opinion that they don't believe Christa will ever be executed because judges do not like to sentence women to die anyway. But just a little statistics for you. Roughly 13% of suspects arrested for murder are women, and only 2% of that receive the death penalty. Now, there have only been 13 executions in Tennessee from 1960 onward, and they've all been men. So I tend to agree with whoever's opinions those are, that she's probably just going to rot in jail the rest of her life.
Mm-mm.
Now, mind you, I believe it wasn't until like 2000 something, probably like 2002, I believe it was, where they switched to doing lethal injection rather than electrocution. So she's at least got that. But to this day, Christa remains the only woman in Tennessee awaiting execution. She is 46 years old. She's living in a gray concrete box that's full of stuffed animals, toys, family photos, and trinkets of angels. She's allowed 1 hour a day of exercise, and that's her life. I personally think she's done zero good in her life. She's got absolutely no indication that she will ever breathe a speck into the world for the better. She needs to die. She's a waste of tax dollars. What are we waiting for?
And women want to be treated as equal. Well,
I'll flip the switch.
Yeah, I'll help.
I mean, her sentence was electrocution, so she shouldn't even get the easy way out. But in the age of green technology, I get that that's a waste of electricity on her. We've got better ways.
I wonder if they could do a solar-powered electric chair.
I feel like that would be very cruel, because what if like the juice isn't good that day and you just get a couple good jolts and they're still alive?
Well, but like the battery pack idea where it like stores the electricity.
So far to date, now mind you, I haven't spent thousands of dollars in solar panels, but any solar technology I've had the experience with, I wouldn't think it'd be an efficient way to end somebody. Just juice them up. It works. We've proven it effective. Put her down.
Yeah. She's not going to be rehabilitated. She's never going to be released.
No. And there are plenty of statistics also with people with borderline personality disorder that they fight any sort of help. So there's no helping her. This is just cruel, keeping her in a concrete box.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mind-fucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.